Ride or die. Cold, these brothers my guys. Know that they fly. Know that they fly. Know that they ride or die. CJ Ike, they ain't no longer about. They ain't no longer about. They ain't no longer about. CJ Ike, they ain't no longer about. Know that they ride or die. I'm a OG boy. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my seat, boy. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my seat, boy. We hustle, but the night. Boys by my seat, boy. Know that they ride or die.
Hello, cousin. I am Uncle Mike, and the first thing is thumbs up because you are amazing. Welcome to this episode 7 of Unusual Attitude, my YouTube podcast, where we fly airplanes in Microsoft Flight Simulator on the Xbox, but we also talk about whatever we want to talk about, and I post down in the description what the topic is for the flight. And tonight's topic is data and facts. And so there's a lot of reasons for that, and we'll get into that once we get into the air and all that kind of stuff. But a few notums first for everybody out there. One is that also down in the description, I post the route for the flight. So if you want to fly along with the route, please go ahead. I post down there. It's usually on the East USA server. Then I post the route that I will take, the altitude that I will take, the airplane that I will be flying, so you can fly something comparable if you like to. So you're more than welcome to jump in here, and especially if I know that somebody is going to be joining, then I'll make sure that I have other players turned on. A lot of times I turn it off. The reason being is because just so it doesn't bog down the Xbox, all of that scenery and stuff, and all that input from live players. So if you're going to come join me, then please let me know. And that way then I can make sure that you're visible here in my live stream when I do that. Also, here for the next 3 weeks, so starting Sunday, I will not be home. I am traveling on business. I will still be active on YouTube and doing other things. But unfortunately, I will be away from the Xbox and away from Microsoft Flight Simulator. So most of my content for the 3 weeks that I will be gone here will be, some health, some weight and wellness videos. I continue to update you on how my progress is doing on my voyage of being less fat. I'll probably be doing some traveling around, so I'll probably post some travel shorts and all that. So I will be active on YouTube, but I just won't be active on Microsoft Flight Simulator and Unusual Attitude here. And so that is one of the things. So yeah. Oh yeah, cool. Hey, RJ plays. Gotta actuate the Z at the end. RJ please. Hey, thumbs up because you are amazing. And Victoria, thumbs up because you are amazing. And so yeah, with that, click that like button if you do. Subscribe if you haven't. Comment, share. Come join me in the chat in a future live stream if you are watching this recording. But if you are RJ Plays and Victoria here in chat, then you are amazing. And with that, let's go ahead and game on. And so here we are sitting here at, I'm not even sure what this airport's actually called. It's in Richmond, Kentucky. I don't know what it's actually called, like Central Kentucky Regional maybe, but it's Kilo Romeo Golf Oscar. So that is the airport here. It's in Richmond, like I said, Richmond, Kentucky. We're going to be doing a full IFR flight here from Richmond, Kentucky over to Pikeville Municipal, shooting the ILS approach, because as you can see here in Richmond, the weather right now is crap. It is IFR, it is IMC right now, and so we are going to be doing a full IFR flight. And unlike where I usually kind of get it all set up and then it's nice weather and all that kind of stuff, we talk, it's going to be a little, like I said, about an hour flight, short flight, but we are going to be talking the whole way about facts and data, because again, one of the reasons is because, well, I also play Dungeons and Dragons, so I like systems and rules and facts and data and all that kind of stuff. I also like flying airplanes, especially instruments, because I like getting the data and the facts of what's going on. And of course, now with a weight loss voyage here, that I also like collecting data about what's going on with my body and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, this is tonight's topic, facts and data. But let's go ahead and do some flying. Let's go ahead and do some aviating, if you know what I mean. And so with that, let's go ahead and jump into the cockpit here. And it looks like I have already crashed here the electronics in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So I am going to do something real quick here, because I got options, I think. We'll see if I still have options. And the options are to put on radio navigation. Haha, beat the system. Because our IFR flight that we are going to be doing here, we are going to be doing the old classic VOR ILS instrument landing system. We don't need none of that fancy GPS, but you can see that here on Microsoft Flight Simulator, our ADF, or not our ADF, excuse me, our autopilot here and our, yeah, what is that? Oh, transponder, squawk box, has died here, but we're going to go ahead and do the flight here. If we got to fly it by hand the whole way, then we will, and I will continue to talk. So with that, we are set to go. I've got everything rocking and rolling here. We might get in some dark conditions, so I've gone ahead and turned down the lights, but it looks like those have crashed too. So we'll see what's working here. We'll see what's working, because see, I've lost all my instruments here. This is Xbox Microsoft Flight Simulator. It does this sometimes, and I am not going to restart. I'm not going to put you through that. So we're going to see if we still got all our steam gauges. And so yeah, let's go ahead and get going here. So brakes coming off, bring some power in. Oh, and with that, everything came back. So we'll see what we've got here. See if everything looks like it's booting back up. Woohoo! Yeah. As we taxi out here, let me go ahead and switch that. Here we go. Oh yeah, the sexy Cessna 310. You might be wondering, like, why you been flying the Cessna 310 so often, especially all over Kentucky, Uncle Mike? Why have you been doing that? Well, another Southern buddy here that I actually just met in real life at Oshkosh 2023. The fire pilot flies in real life a Cessna 310. So I've been kind of recreating some of his flights. This was actually a flight that he recreated, or that he did, and I'm recreating here to go from Richmond over to Pikeville. So another recreation. Oh, see, it just crashed again. So all right, we are set to go here, but before we start rocking and rolling here, let me go ahead and show you our flight path so you can be interested in it. So here's our flight path. We are basically going to be going from Richmond here to the north up to a VOR, intercepting then the outbound radial, flying over actually Pikeville, and then kind of doing just our own procedure turn to the left and shooting the instrument landing the ILS runway 27 here at Pikeville. So that is what we are going to be doing. Why did I switch to that one? I don't know. We're in game mode here, and so that is our flight path. So I'll go ahead and leave that up in case we need to look at it here. But yep, we got dead instruments and all this kind of stuff, but we're still gonna fly it here in Microsoft Flight Simulator on the Xbox Series X. I'm gonna go ahead and bring the power up, and there it goes. I don't know why it's, maybe I've got something going on with the alternators. So everything is looking good. I like what I see here. Brakes coming off, power's coming in. If you watched my YouTube short recently in this airplane, we had a left engine failure on takeoff coming out of Harlan, Kentucky. But you can see we're safely down. All right, airspeed is alive. 70 knots, coming up on 80 knots, 85 knots, rotate. And looking good. Positive rate gears coming up. All right, trim a little bit here. Let the plane kind of settle. Oh yeah, we got rain here. Still see the ground, so I'm kind of VFR right now, but that's not what I want to do. So we're gonna transition down here to IFR now. So we're gonna go ahead and start using the instruments to let us know how we are doing. We took off at about 1,400 feet or something like that. So right around 2,000 feet here, we will go ahead and set cruise power. And I'm going to go ahead and start turning to the left a little bit, kind of get on heading here is what we need to do. All right, with that now, I'm going to start coming back on the prop to about 2,400 RPMs. We'll get those evened out here in just a little bit. Go ahead and get level here on the climb. Come back 2,400 or 24 inches of manifold pressure. There we go. I'm hand flying it right now. Well, actually, I'm not hand flying. I'm on the stick and triggers on the Xbox controller. All right. Watching our climb here. Going to need trim, retrim. As Blanco Lirio would say, trim. All right, there we go. Small movements. I like what we've got going on. 24 inches, everything's looking good. Passing through, coming up on 3,000 feet. We're actually going to 8,000 feet today. We're about to make a little bit of a right turn and head north here toward Lexington. All right, now we're on our flight plan here. Flight path. I'm going to go ahead and start turning here. Everything is looking good in the neighborhood. I like what I see. I like what's going on so far. Oh, we're coming out of that cloud layer here. So with that now, I am going to go ahead and autopilot is coming on, or as I like to call them, auto. So auto has come in here, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go on nav. We're going to go on head mode. Everything is looking good. Looks like our head mode is inoperative right now on the old autopilot, so it looks like we're going to be flying this by heading mode. No worries here. Everything is looking good in the neighborhood. All right, let's go ahead and get the props now settled down. Get that, you kind of hear a little bit of the boom, boom, boom. There we go, come on. There we go, I like that right there. That's nice right there. All right, climbing up. Everything is looking good. We're on instruments here. Because we just can't see. You want to see what it looks like outside? That's what it looks like outside. So this is why the topic is facts and data. Because we need to use the data that is presented in front of us. Oh, look, we're busting on the clouds. Beautiful, it's amazing. Oh, this is going to be a cool flight here. There we go. So we got this ceiling. Now we just get a nice, it'll be beautiful up here. Beautiful up on top here. All right, everything is looking good as we're climbing up. We're losing our power, so our manifold pressure. So we'll go ahead and go back 24 inches of manifold pressure. Everything is looking good in the neighborhood as we are climbing up. We're going to 8,000 feet. We have got to get to Lexington VOR. We have got 12.5 miles to go right there on the DME right there. So as we climb out. So yeah, so IFR flying, instrument flight rules. We need to use facts and data. And one of the scary things about in real life instrument flying is so often for VFR pilots, visual pilots using visual flight rules. The challenge so often is that you're also getting data from your eyes, from how you feel, your inner ear, your balance. And this right here, the human body can actually present false data. I've got a lot of old even YouTube shorts on my YouTube channel here where I talk about how errors, how the body could even fool, even how the brain, based on past experience, fills in the gaps, even of what you see. It's absolutely amazing of what can, really transpire and stuff like that. I'm going to go ahead and put the noise canceling headphones on here and kind of turn down the sound here so maybe you can hear me better. So here we are, VFR. But yeah, so the human body though really will create, well, I guess the term these days is misinformation, right? It'll basically lie to you. And so as we're climbing up here, just passing through 6,000 feet, going to 8,000 feet, that I'm going to give a little turn here. Again, heading mode is in op on the autopilot right now, so we are flying heading mode. Then the dangerous thing of flying on instruments is that your body might be giving you false data, right? And you believe because, well, this is you. And so pilots then, the bad thing is that they actually start to, what do you want to say, believe their body rather than what the airplane is telling them. And so that gets them in trouble because your inner ear can have a lot of problems. And so you can go on YouTube, you can see all these crashes. We're about to have an alarm here. We're passing through 7,000 feet. There's our alarm. That alarm means we got 1,000 to go to 8,000 feet. That's our cruising altitude. So basically we just got a few more miles up here, 6 more miles that we need to start making a turn to heading, I think we need to go to heading of like 163 is what we need to do. No, 103, excuse me, 103 will be our heading coming up here in just a few moments. And so, we're getting higher, so I need to add more power. Probably go ahead and just go full throttle, keep up. Yep, there's full throttle. And we got a little slow there as I was talking, got a little distracted. And that's a dangerous thing right there, is to get distracted too while you're instrument flying. We'll go ahead and pitch on over. Tell Otto, our German co-pilot here, to go ahead and kind of pitch over here and just kind of slow climb now up here. But yeah, so what happens is that the human body starts to give misinformation to the pilot, and they might think that they're in straight and level flight, where in all reality they're turning. And of course that can lead to major problems and death. So, and there's a bunch of YouTube videos out there. All of my videos, I've got links to, several YouTubers and pilot tubers out there that kind of talk about fatalities, especially in general aviation. That's Probable Cause by Dan Grider, Blanco Lirio. There's even Flywire that's out there. Of course, you can always go to the Aviation Safety Network and see how these pilots, one of the famous ones in history, that probably most of us know in our age. So here we are, just a second. We are leveling out here at 8,000 feet. We only got 2.5 miles to the VOR, at which point we need to make a turn to the right. So I'm actually going to go ahead and make that turn here to the right in just a moment. But what we're going to do is, here, let me come down here so you can see this, is that we are going to need to fly at a heading of 103. I'm going to set my instrument here to 103. And so what we're going to do here, we've got only 1 mile, so I'm going to go ahead and start to make that turn to the right with an offset to the left, because you can see that in our instrument right there in the center, that center yellow needle is offset to the left. So I'm going to keep us to the left so we can intercept that, and that will then bring that needle to the center, at which point we will then go ahead and turn onto our heading of 103. Start heading toward Pikeville. And there it is. So, and I kind of blew past a little bit, but we'll correct here. We've got time to correct to get out here. So again, I don't have any reference to the ground here of where I'm at. I'm having to have my plan. Of course, we have our map here of where we can then, right, see kind of where we're at. So where we're at now is we're on the long magenta line heading out here from the VOR, heading down to Pikeville. That is where we are at. All right, so we're level at 8,000 feet. Everything is looking good in the neighborhood. I like what I see here. And we'll see if we can get, and we're not doing too bad on the speed and all that. So like I said, we're up here chatting. That's what the whole point of Unusual Attitude is to do some flights and get up here and enjoy the flight and talk about whatever we want to talk about. All right, so now you can see that I've corrected to the right. That needle's coming centered, so I'm going to go ahead and center that up there. All right, so now we're looking pretty good here. Heading outbound from Lexington now, heading down toward Pikeville to the east is where we're heading. So we can go ahead, we can check out some views though. So what we got? So we got this nice view here. We got a nice view here of November 5225 Juliet. But since we are flying full IFR, we might want to go ahead and just keep an eye on the instrument. So I'm going to go ahead, maybe we'll do a nice view like, yeah, there you go, out the window, something like that. Huh? That's kind of a nice view. All right, so I got to move it a little bit here so that there's a hot spot for the electronic flight bag or the tablet, your iPad in the cockpit. So so yeah, historically one of the most notable ones where there was a unusual attitude and spatial disorientation, where the body was giving facts, right, data, right, your senses, and then the pilot then thought, hey, something else is going on. And a lot of times even VFR pilots will get into trouble at night because they can't see the ground. They don't have, right, even at night, VFR has to use more of their instruments and trust their instruments more, especially when they go where I learned to fly out in Arizona. When I would fly at night, sometimes there were just no lights, or very, very few lights, and there was terrain also. So navigation and pre-planning and so on about terrain was very, very important when I did night flying as a private pilot. But most notably in history probably was, JFK Jr., right? Flying, I think from Martha's Vineyard back to Long Island or vice versa or something like that. And it looks like probably just got disoriented, didn't have reference, didn't actually trust what his plane was telling him, and flew it into the water, flew it in the ocean, killed all three of them, right? And so, but that's one of the reasons why I have to say that I like facts and data. and I trust facts and data. And it's a skill, because you also trust your body, right? You trust what you see, you trust what you hear. But again, I've got so many things on my YouTube channel, YouTube Shorts from way back when. So if you go down and look at like the vlog playlist that's down there at the bottom of my YouTube, and you start looking for, you know, things about facts and data, and how you don't really even necessarily see what you think you're seeing, because your brain fills in the gaps based on its previous experience and knowledge, right? And it's very interesting. Like, there's been some scientific, you know, kind of just papers, but also studies, but you can do it kind of yourself, especially in your family if you've got like infants, right? Or even dogs and cats and stuff, that a lot of times they don't, like, if you roll their toy, right, and it goes like behind the furniture, let's say behind a couch, right? So you roll and they see it, and they're in front of the couch, and they watch it go on one side of the couch, and then of course their toy and their ball rolls behind the couch. They don't see it anymore, and then it keeps going, right? Well, typically an infant or even a dog, they'll watch it, and when it gets to where it disappears, they keep watching right there where it disappeared, right? Where most of us, in our experience, right, we know that if the ball rolls, then probably it's going to pop out the other side. Makes sense, right? We know that to happen. Anybody say, well, what does that got to do? Well, that means a lot in terms of the brain, because what happens then is, even in visual space, when we know, like, oh, well, when, you know, a spear, right, pierces a watermelon. I don't know why I'm using that, but I am using that. You know, like a spear pierces a watermelon. Well, we know that the spear is also in the watermelon, right? Well, the dog or the infant doesn't know that their brain isn't developed like that, right? They don't have that experience to understand that. They need to get that experience to understand that. But what happens to us is, since that's what our brain knows, and in its experience, it knows that to be true, because we've cut the watermelon. Oh, look, I see the spear going through. But then what happens is, if you draw a solid circle, a black solid circle, and then you draw a line through it, well, you have like a blind spot, right? We all have blind spots because that's where our optic nerve is. What's fascinating is that your brain will actually fill in the gap. If you put your blind spot where the black circle is, you'll see a solid line, but you know that at the blind spot you shouldn't be able to see nothing, but you still see through the blind spot, even with one eye closed, because your brain has learned, oh, when something goes through something, it's still there, so the brain actually fills in the gap. It's absolutely fascinating, and I have a YouTube video that shows about that. I'll probably then try to remember to put a link to that video so you can watch it, because it really, really is fascinating on how what you think, right, is happening is not really, right? And sometimes your senses that you're getting facts and data from overpower your other senses. For example, you can make lemon jello but dye it red, and then most people, based on their experience, will say something like it was cherry or raspberry or strawberry, because they know, right, red stuff, red jello should taste like that, and they don't taste the lemon. So when you ask them, they're like, oh yeah, that was like cherry flavor, or that was raspberry flavor. And no, it's not. It was lemon. But our eyes are one of our most powerful senses and information and data to the brain. Fascinating stuff. So how does that, again, relate to aviation? Because the plane and the human body can get in conflict with each other, and then bad things happen. So that's what happens. So pretty cool stuff. A lot of stuff that you can, I mean, you can spend your whole lifetime studying it, right? The human body and all this kind of stuff. That was actually one thing that I thought I was going to be doing in my life, was basically going into medicine and then doing flight physiology in the Air Force. Well, that didn't happen. But it still fascinates me. Human behavior fascinates me. So, all right, with that, we're up here on top. Everything is still looking good in the neighborhood. We're just a little bit off course to the right, so I can go ahead and deviate just a little bit to get that back on course. But I'm going to come over here and I'm going to be looking at it where we're at. We're somewhere out here, and so I don't even know how far we actually need to go here to get. So we need to figure out how we are going to find out when we are over this airport, because right now we can't see the ground. So we're going to need to use facts and data to try to figure out, and of course our self here. So we've got this right here. Let's see if we can figure out what we can do here. Well, we've got another chart we can actually take a look at, and that is the low. And so it looks like here, it looks like to be about 81 miles. And out here we're going out here to SLINK. That's where we want to get out to. So right now we're at like 20, it looks like to be about 25 miles. I'm going back in the cockpit. I am looking right here. So we're like 30 miles outside of the VOR. And so we go back to our map here. But what we can do is we can actually just go ahead and use the map. I know where we're going to. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of the approach plate. We'll need that later, but we don't need that right now. I'm also going to go ahead and clear this out. So if we start a route from the VOR, and then we come down here to SLINK, that's the route that we're on. Whoop, that's not what I want. I need to delete that. What is that doing there? All right, delete that. There we go. So we're coming. We took off from here. We came up, took this right turn. We're on this magenta line right now, and we've got facts and data that are telling us right now we are 32 miles out. Well, you can see here from this that we need to go 123 miles. But we've got a little ways to go. So we're somewhere right out over here right now. That is where we're at. So we can actually just put a dot right there, and we can manipulate the dot. So that is where we are at. See, 33 miles out. So to get to this airport right here, we go ahead and just plan that. 33 miles. We're passing over Stanton right now. Stanton doesn't have any type of VOR or anything like that, but that is where we are at right now. I'm saying, why are we doing this right now? Well, the reason why we're doing it is because in the cockpit here, we are having to do traditional radio navigation because our fancy stuff, our fancy avionics crapped out on us. And so we are having to fly here using radio navigation and maps, which is good because that's the theme of the whole podcast, right? Is facts and data. So we're having to develop our own facts and data to do this flight here. So also in the cockpit here, I'm going to reach on down here and turn on, get some air here in the cockpit. Oh yeah, feels good in the neighborhood. still at 8,000 feet. Everything is looking good. I'm not really sure, like I said, why we can't get nav mode to operate, but it is dead. Probably has to do with when we had that, all that crapping out of our avionics there before we even started. So looking good. This is our nav 2. This is our second OBS, so we can put that back on to also 103. And about, there we go. Oh, looking good here. Everything is, we're on track. So we need to go at 123 miles is when we actually really will make then really a left 180, intercept the ILS approach into Pikeville is what we are going to be doing. But again, here on Unusual Attitude, we are, you know, we've got to figure out our facts and data using the instruments that we have in front of us, and of course here we have the luxury, right, of using our charts. And so we're using then here our charts and the information and the facts and data that we can collect to go ahead and determine where we're at here using radio navigation, which is what we would do in, you know, in the real world. You know, we planned it. When I was flying just, you know, privately, and then, you know, not at night, but on night I would have a knee board and I'd have everything planned out. So all my pertinent information, I would write it down. I'd mark it up on my, you know, my VFR sectionals and all that. If it was during the day, I would actually have a grease pen and I would actually write on the you know, on the windows information and frequencies and all that kind of stuff for the flight, because you got to keep track of information and data. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, like one of the basic instruments. But out here on the East Coast, I'm looking at the map here. Now out here on the East Coast, there's not a lot of airports and stuff anymore that use ADF, and so, which is basically just basically a radio signal. And so, you know, a lot of times in VFR we would be using those, especially out west. There's more, but out here in the east, there's not a lot of them. Here I see that at Stuart Powell Field, to the west of where we took off, that has ADF. Got an ADF dialed in right now, but it's just an ADF out kind of in the middle of nowhere, just for navigation. And then where we're actually heading, I really don't see much of an ADF or anything that would actually help us. Just an old school direction finder signal. So, and that's, you know, in case we, you know, basically all of our stuff really crapped out on us. Because clearly the airplane is not 100% here in Microsoft Flight Simulator on the Xbox Series X. I had an engine failure in this airplane already. You can see that YouTube shorts. Clearly before we started here, we had shorts going on out in here in the game, so I went ahead and just changed the option, which I can do from, you know, modern, nice Garmin electronics to just radio, classic radio navigation. Radio. And so everything is looking good in the neighborhood. At some point here, we'll need to brief our approach of what we want to do. So, and I've got everything dialed in. So this frequency right here, we're on 112.6. So 112.6, that is the VOR out at Lexington that we're flying outbound from. And 109.7 is the ILS approach. That is the localizer frequency into Pikeville. So all we gotta do is press a button, swap that over. And so I will probably be doing that. What we'll probably do is once we fly over the airport, I will probably switch it over on nav 2, which means this one down here, our backup nav, that right there will then show it for the time being, just so we can get ourselves positioned and established on the approach. So, and we got a little bit of break in the clouds. It was kind of just solid overcast, but we're starting to get a few breaks in the clouds. So maybe when we get lower, but clearly we know we have rain and all that kind of stuff down in this cloud layer. So I am not going to try to do VFR. We're still in the mountains of Kentucky, and so we are still going to do IFR. We're not going to try to get below this because you can see that there's rain out over there. But November 225 Juliet is performing real nice after that left engine failure. I got into the AFP mechanic. They rebuilt the engine. Everything is amazing. All right, so get back here in the cockpit. Just do a check. Everything's looking good. Let's do a check over here. We got 23 inches of manifold pressure, 2400 RPMs. Oil pressure is still in the green, a little high. Cylinder temps look good. Oil temps look good. We got plenty of fuel. So everything is looking good. Now, since we're at 8,000 feet, one thing you can do, I usually don't do it, but you can then work the mixtures. That's if you really want to work through your process and really understand all that, you know, for fuel flow and all that. But I will go ahead and disclose that I usually fly this on unlimited fuel. So I usually don't mess with the mixtures because I'm also on controller. And so it's just harder. I just don't have a lot of control. So if I ever move to a yoke or something like that in a throttle quadrant, then I'll do more, you want to say, you know, study level flying, where, you know, work the mixture and all that. But a lot of times the airplanes don't even, it doesn't matter to the airplane or the sim, right? So, you know, the master race PC guys, you know, they got all the good stuff over there. So, all right, so we need to go 120 miles roughly, and we're coming up on 60 miles right here. 60 miles, see right there, 60 miles right there, 56.8. So again, when that reads about 120 miles, we are at our end of this leg, and we need to start descending and turning around and intercepting the ILS for runway 27 into Pikeville. So when we get close to that, we'll need to start briefing that what we'll need to do. All right, I'm just checking out here on the health of the live stream. The health of the live stream is looking good. But yeah, the plane's performing well, looking good. Like I said, I could back off on the mixture and I could do some, you know, trimming up and all this kind of stuff, but for our entertainment and enjoyment, that study level, don't really need to worry about it here in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 on the Xbox Series X. But yeah, if you do a search for, you know, spatial disorientation, you know, and crash, accident, airplane accident, you can see all kinds of videos where this happened. Actually, you know, I mentioned the webpage Flywire, and he actually has a video that recently I just found, that's him flying his Bonanza, and it's very interesting because he talks about where he's like the most nervous or scared or fearful during instrument flying. And you would think it would be like the instrument approach that we're going to do, an RNAV approach, an ILS approach, or just flying through the clouds or anything like that. But it was very interesting because in that video he talks about how where he's most nervous is what we've already gone through here on this flight, which is your visual, because on takeoff you're looking at the runway, you're looking at the ground, and you're basically getting visual cues as to what the airplane is doing. Yes, you're getting some instrument stuff on how your airspeed. That's why we call that airspeed alive, and we call speed, because really on takeoff, that's one of the biggest instruments that you are trusting, that you are getting facts and data from, is your airspeed indicator. And if your airspeed indicator does not come alive, you need to then abort the takeoff. You don't have the information or the fundamental information that you need to keep flying instead of becoming, right, a really pretty and sexy looking brick. And so I might even do some YouTube shorts about how some of these instruments work, and because they're fascinating how they actually work just off pressure. It really is interesting using static and dynamic pressure, or RAM pressure if you would like to call it that. So, but he has this video, so Flywire has this video where he talks about the transition from VFR takeoff, right? Because basically it's visual, not necessarily VFR, but it's visual, right? You see the runway, you see the ground, you see what's going on, and then as you take off, just like us, we had to transition into instruments. And that transition from feeling what's going on when you're taking off to then entrusting the instruments, that transition is where he was commenting in his video that where he's the most concerned is that transition, right? And so it's really fascinating to think about when you really think about then that is it actually instrument flying or is it actually VFR flying that is the killer, or is it the transition, the change between the two? Because if you start to think about that change, so we'll go and keep it in the realm of aviation and flying like we're doing right here. So that change is where you have the highest perhaps risk, and therefore also that is where maybe even us as humans don't trust as much. It's very interesting because now I'm going outside of aviation, thinking about like my own experience, even in my own employment, and to think about when there's changes at work or changes in your life. Like you're okay with your life like this, right? At one point you're probably okay with the way your life was, let's just call it, and now you're okay with how your life is. And what were you concerned about? Well, you were concerned about the change, and there was the most stress and fear and emotions and stuff going from how your life was to how your life is. And maybe now you're even stressed out on thinking about how your life will be. So it's not the here and now that is stressful. It's what's going to happen in the future and that speculation. So that's it's interesting to think about. Okay, so we've got a little bit of an issue here. So we're going to probably need to see what we can do here. And the reason being is, looks like we have gone so far away, we're not getting any more DME data from the VOR. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch over to the ILS. And there we go. So the ILS, we picked up the ILS DME now, because it's a DME, a localizer, and also glide slope. See, again, facts and data, and also knowing how systems work. So we have switched over, so I'm going to go ahead and also switch over nav 2 to the ILS. So this is our ILS now, and I'm also going to go ahead and come over here and brief that in Pike. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this up right here. I'm going to go ahead and center it so you can see it, and then we can come over here and we can talk about this. So this is the ILS approach into Pikeville. You can see that we need to be really, it looks to be that we need to be careful of our altitude, so don't drop below 4,700 feet before we get 15 miles within the initial approach fix, which is Absu. Right here, Absu, we need to be at 4,700 feet outside of Absu because of terrain. All right, so we got that to worry about. Localizer, we've already got dialed in 274, so it's almost it's runway 27, so it's a west heading, so that's pretty easy. And then once we get to Absu, it's 13.2 DME out from the localizer, then we can actually start to descend down below 4,700, looks like 4,500. The final approach fix at Pierre, we're at 3,700, so we might be flying this down by hand. We'll see if Otto, our German co-pilot, if he'll intercept the instrument approach. All right, so based on that right there, we kind of need to find out where we're at in orientation space. So to go from the airport out to SLINK, which is that intersection that we want to then start to turn around at, is 30 miles. So right now we have got, on the DME, we've got a little over 16.5 nautical miles before we fly over the airport, and then we want to go another 30 miles before we turn around. Why? Because that's what I had planned. I want to go out to the intersection of SLINK and then turn around. That's my plan. I'm going to stick to my plan because, again, as we just talked about, changes are usually what gets us in trouble. I remember, again, thinking I was going to go into the Air Force and study flight physiology and all of that. I read a lot of books about air combat maneuvers, air combat, right, effect on the human body, and so on. And one of the things, though, in dogfighting was one of the I don't know, you wouldn't call it the tenets, right, the commandments of dogfighting that I remember to this day was basically, if you come up with a plan, stick with the plan. Don't try to do something right in the middle and change the plan. Commit to the plan and act on the plan and follow through. So that is why, even though things have changed here, I'm going to continue our plan. We're going to go out to SLINK intersection and then do a 180 and then come back and then shoot the ILS approach. It's not a procedure turn for all of you out there and all this kind of stuff. It's not part of the publish. It's just what I wanted to do for our flight here today. So, yep. We know that we've got this overcast layer with rain and all that, so it's going to be interesting going through this cloud layer. I don't really even know what the terrain is like down here. I would imagine it's got the Kentucky mountains and all that still up here in it. So, but the plane is behaving nicely for us. And so I just want to continue on this roughly 100-degree heading until we are 30 miles past Pikeville, because the initial approach fix is at 13 miles out. So I want to go roughly double that before we start to come back to intercept the ILS. And again, we'll see if Otto will like us intercepting the ILS, or if I've got to fly this by hand down the ILS, which would be interesting on a controller. I will tell you that. It's not that easy because the sticks move just a little bit and then a lot of movement, where a yoke would be easier, but I just like playing other games, so I like playing on the controller, so that's why I still fly on the controller. Alright, so our facts and data were 11 miles. 11 miles over. We cannot go by that speed because this is directly to the localizer and so on, so it's not going to give us an accurate ground speed or anything like that. So I am just using it for localizer. I'm still flying, like I said, our heading that we were on when we left the VOR. So based on the facts and data that I have, is that we are on course for what we want to do. And of course I can give us a little bit more information, because if I come down here and we know that we need to be on a west heading. 275 is actually the ILS approach course. Because we're on the ILS, this is always going to read right now 2, right? Because we're heading toward it, because we still got 10 miles to go before we get there. So our facts and data here are telling us. But it will also tell us how we're doing left and right, because this needle is basically, we've got this instrument right here set up for the heading of the runway, right? And so this needle will actually give us some other information, especially when we cross over the heading, right? The extended, right, threshold, if you want to go and call it, the extended line that the runway is oriented, which is basically east-west. So when that instrument, that needle starts to go, gets to the center, we are basically then flying right over the center line of the runway. Not at the center of the runway, but the center line of the runway. We're probably going to fly past that a little ways past the airport. So again, a little bit more information, a little more data and facts that we can have here, since we are operating on not the best. So I'm not planning this way. I wanted to talk about facts and data because of my new weight loss voyage that I'm doing, and I need to collect data and see what my body is doing. So I've got physicals planned for later in the year, so I can actually, draw blood and see what my actual, medical data is. But if we extrapolate, that to the talk here and start talking about aviation, we've got all this data in front of us here. And the conflict is that looking out, like, a simple example here, right? A simple example is, we look out the window here. Where are we? Right? Let's take this example. If we look out the window right here, we just look around. Where are we? Are you getting any data by looking around of where we're at? Now, you can get probably some data, because if we look, all right, I'll just go ahead and go outside the airplane. If we look there, we see the sun. So clearly we can get some directional data based on the position of the sun. Amazing. Right? Now, if we look down through the thing, if we saw some landmarks or something like that, but we just don't really have the time here to really pick out a landmark or something like that. So really, we're data-less right now, right? We're just not getting any data. And for me, I will say, is that I see that as a challenge, not as a, we want to call it something to fear, right? It's not a, it's a challenge, not a catastrophe. Let's call it that. To me, it's okay. I got it. It's a challenge. I need more data, right? To survive, right? All this kind of stuff. I need more data. That's how I look at it. So, all right, let's go ahead and take a look here. As you can see, the ticker's going up here. DMA is going up, 12.3, 12.4. Remember, we want to go 30 miles past. We're also going to watch this needle right down here, because when it crosses over the center right here, we have crossed over the extended center line of the runway extending east-west. So right now we are north of the runway. When we cross that, that means that we are south, which means that gives us geometry. That gives us a data point that, man, and right at that point, when that needle there, when that is centered up, if I turned and headed straight toward the heading of the runway, what does that mean? Well, that means then I'm actually going right down the center line of the runway. Data. Right? That's how this works. And the challenge in the world that I see is there is just so much of the world operating in data-less or just lies in all kinds of conversations and topics, right? And I don't interact with typically people and things that all they do is profess lies, right? Misinformation, right? Or they're data-less, or their data is completely wrong, right? When it comes to factual data, right? That's why I don't like history. I say, well, why don't you like history? The reason I don't like history is because it is the remembered events of what happened. What I like is historicity, a completely different concept, which is it is the facts of what happened. Different things, right? Different things. Somebody can just say what happened, and that might not be true or not. It might not be factual data, right? So I like facts, right? And I like, as much as possible, talking about facts and data rather than really feelings and emotions and all that. But I do, right? But I prefer, right, to really work through first the facts and the data, like we're having to do here, because our Cessna 310 still has got some problems. So we're at 18 miles out, 10 miles to go, and we really need to start thinking about coming on down here. Actually, we could probably start to come on down. Remember, we got to stay really above 4,700 feet for terrain. That's what the approach plate told us. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go ahead and start bugging for 6,000 feet. Go ahead and come into a descent. I'm going to come off the power too. No reason for things to happen real fast right now. I'm going to come down to 20 inches of manifold pressure as we start our descent here to 6,000 feet. From 8,000 to 6,000 as we are descending down here. Gonna deviate just a little bit to the right here. And so what am I looking at? Well, now the data that I'm looking at is my altimeter. I've got it bugged for 6,000 feet. We're in the descent, passing through 7,000, almost 500. Airspeed is looking good. We're 21 miles past the localizer. And remember, we're going to about 30 miles or so on, and I'm also waiting for that instrument right down there to go ahead and switch over. In all reality, this one right here will also switch over. So we can go ahead and actually turn that one to the same thing. So 275, because we've already looked at the approach plate for the ILS approach for only 2.7, and it's basically 275. So there we go. So that's how now you can actually better see on the horizontal situation indicator that the yellow needle is roughly the center line of the runway. This offset shows us relative to that center line, and then this bug right here is our heading. So you kind of see how we're going to cross over the center line and then make we're like going like this, and we're going to make a basically 180 left and then ILS approach. That's the plan. All right, and we're coming up on 7,000 feet. We should hear a visual or an audio alarm telling us 1,000 feet to go. There it is. That's what I was expecting. Again, facts and data, and expectations. Right? So far, what I am visualizing in my head that is happening from the data that I am collecting and that I have is what's actually happening right now. Right? All right, we're at 25 miles past the localizer. And what we might do is we might, because it would be very beneficial for us to watch this flip so we know relative space where we're at relative to the center line of the runway. So we might actually wait for those needles to flip before we go ahead and do our 180. This is going to be roughly at about 30 miles or so. I'm expecting that to happen. That is what I'm expecting to see here. And of course we can make that happen probably quicker if I went ahead and I just deviated. Just there it goes. Oh no, I just lost. So we're too far away, right? So we just lost our ILS approach. So what we're gonna do is we know we were at like 26, 27 miles out. So now I really just don't have much data right now. Still got the plane flying great. Still got our airspeed, our altimeter. We're coming up on 6,000 feet. So we're gonna fly now based on some time data, right? And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come over here. We've got a clock right here and some seconds here. And so we're doing about, well, we're gonna start slowing down here just a little bit as we level out. But we're doing roughly 2.5 miles a minute. So I'm gonna go ahead and go out here for another like 2 or 3 minutes. And so obviously you can see the time it is. So I am gonna go ahead and wait a couple minutes here before we make that turn. Because if we're way far out and the ILS reactivates and we got plenty of altitude, we can then adjust. So we'll get a little lower, we'll slow down, and we'll wait for our data, for our instruments to reconnect here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fly out here for about another, we've gone about a minute now since I was, or 30 seconds since I was talking. So we'll just keep going here for probably we'll go out for another full minute at least, and then we'll make that turn. So again, what's happened is we've gone too far, so we've lost the signal at 109.7 right there. We have lost that signal. But again, we visualized, we had a plan, we had the data, we know what was going on. And so we can then use that so we can visualize. So we're coming up here in about 30 seconds. We are going to make then a turn. Start heading back toward the airport along what we expect the runway heading to be, which is 270. We'll let the instrument reacquire the instrument landing system, which means we'll have the data. We can then adjust if we need to go left or right before we get to the final approach fix. So that is the plan. We're coming up here on about 10 seconds, and I'm going to go ahead and start making that turn. And we'll also, after the turn, we'll go ahead and actually descend down to that low altitude of 4,700. We don't want to go below that until we're within 15 miles of the airport. So, all right, so with that then, we are going to go ahead and start our, still the same plan. We're going to make a left turn here to the west. So we're just going to go ahead and use auto here. He's our best friend. He helps alleviate the workload in the cockpit. So what am I doing here? I am on the horizontal situation indicator. I am going to go ahead and line up our heading right there with that yellow line as we make a turn here to the west. I'm going to go ahead, come back on the power. We got lower, so we actually gained some power in the engines, but I'm going to come back to about 19 inches of manifold pressure. Go ahead and keep the prop still at 2,400 RPMs. Just slow down a little bit. All right, so 4,700. So I'm going to go ahead and rebug 4,700. And I'm also going to start our descent. All right, so here we go. So what are we waiting for? We're waiting to reacquire the ILS. which will then give us data, how far we are left and right of center line, and then we can use that data then to go ahead and compensate and make a safe landing, even though we are not 100% in this aircraft right now for this flight. In real life, if that had happened in real life, we wouldn't be doing this flight. But because it's a podcast and we want to have the talk and experience and really show, right, and demonstrate what I was talking about having data, not having data, it's 1,000 feet to go. So we're passing 5,700 feet. Yeah, this is a great example. So I'm actually happy that this happened. So, all right, descending on down here, we're now, even though we've been on instruments the whole time, we could see though we had an illusion of a horizon with the clouds. But now we are going to be jumping down here into IMC, so I don't think there's going to be anything really to see. So I'm going to go ahead and just come on instruments here. So here we go. This is what our view is going to be looking like for a while here, as we are now descending down to 4,700 feet, heading back toward the airport. So here we go. We are in the clouds. And we're out of the clouds, and we're in the clouds, and we're out of the clouds, and we're in the clouds. You get a cloud, and you get a cloud, and you get a cloud, and you get a cloud. Because here we are, slowly descending down. Beautiful though, right? I mean, that's beautiful. Cloud layer. Just looks like cotton ball. Look at that. Oh, that's gorgeous, right? That's amazing. That is amazing. All right, back in the cockpit. All right, 5,000 feet, 300 to go. Going to 4,700, so I'm going to watch auto. We'll level off and we'll slow down also. So we have not reacquired the ILS. I had another VOR that I could actually dial in. So as I'm looking at the chart here, we could dial in Bluefield at 115.05. But we have a plan here, and I don't want to change the plans. There was another option. We could have actually diverted to an airport that had a VOR at it. That would have been also probably what I would have done in real life. Because this airport, yes, it has an ILS, but it doesn't have a VOR or ADF or anything other than ILS. So it's a little bit more challenging for us to do this, but it'll be okay. We'll acquire the signal here in a few minutes, and all will be okay. So we're definitely right at the cloud layer. Look at that. Look at this. Oh, that right there is amazing. Right at the top of the clouds, in and out of these just clouds right here. Okay, acquired signal. There it is. All right, you can see now that we are to the right of the center line of the runway, so we need to turn and intercept. So I'm going to go ahead and turn. I'm going to go ahead and go 30 degrees, so 240. We're at 4,700. But remember, we can't descend below 4,700 until we are 15 miles for terrain avoidance. We got 10 miles to go before we can descend down. Actually, no, that is not correct. We need to go down to 4,500 before Absu, and Absu's at 13. So 13, so we could actually right now descend down to 4,500. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So above 4,500. And descend on down. All right, going back into IMC. So I'm just going to focus now on the instruments. So what I am expecting here is we're 30 degrees. We're going to fly toward the needle. So 30 degrees offset here. I think everything is going to be looking good in the neighborhood here. So we're just watching that needle, watching our speed, watching our altitude. So we're at 4,500. I am going to go ahead and start slowing down. So I'm going to come slow down some more. I don't need things happening fast. All right, I'm going to just go ahead and check and make sure. So I'm going to go ahead and switch this. Yep, and needle dies. Needle activates. Okay, so we're acquiring signal. Everything is looking good in the neighborhood. All right, I'm going to check and see if we can actually intercept if auto here will intercept and go into approach mode. No, so nav and approach mode are completely dead. We're going to be flying this with heading mode, and we're going to have to get creative with this here because we've lost some of our functionality on our autopilot and our instruments. So all right, I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit of power here. Maintain about 110 knots. All right, glide slope is alive now too. That's good. But we cannot, nope, we cannot activate approach mode. So we are all on our own here. But we got the glide slope has activated. So that's good to know. It's good to know. All right, because I don't want to get my workload going when I'm having to fly this down. So I am going to go ahead and drop 1 notch of flaps and add some power. Needle is alive. Needle is alive. You can see the needle center in there. Needle is alive. I'm going to go to a 15-degree offset now. Still on autopilot, just having to use heading mode and some of the other functionality of the autopilot. We're 18 miles out. Remember, this is what we're seeing, just this cloud layer here, so that's why we are just on instruments using facts and data. All right, needles centered. Turning on course. A little bit offset now to the left, but that's okay. We'll get it centered back up. We got plenty of time. We're 17 miles out. So at 13.2 miles out, we need to be at 4,500 feet. We're already at 4,500 feet. So everything's looking good there. Then looking at the at 7 miles out is the final approach fix. We need to be at 3,700. So as soon as we get to 13.2, I'm going to start a descent down. Start a descent down to 3,700. So I'm going to go ahead and bug that. 3,700 is bugged. Got a little bit of a broken airplane here still. All right, 1 notch of flaps is in. Come off the power here just a little bit. You want to see what the airplane looks like? There's what the airplane looks like. 1 notch of flaps. Again, I'm just trying to stay ahead of the airplane. All right, coming up on 14. So we got coming up on 14.2 here in just a moment. There we go. So we got 1 mile to go where we need to be at 4,500, which we are at. And then after 13.2, we can descend down then to 3,700. Coming up 13.4. Go ahead and keep that needle. I'm just using heading mode to keep that needle center. 13.2. There we go. So I'm going to start our descent. Descent coming down. Here we go. When you go down to 3,700 feet at 7 miles out. We got 5.5 miles to get down to 3,500 feet. Alright, we are in IMC now, because this is what it looks like looking out the window. Decision height for us is going to be about 1,700 feet. Is when we really need to start looking out the window, see what we've got. Alright, coming down, coming up the power here, getting a little faster in the descent. Go back to 19 inches of manifold pressure. Alright, we're 3 miles out. I'm going to go ahead and put the gear down. Gear is coming down. That warning was the gear warning. So here we are. Gear is down and locked. Looking good in the neighborhood. Alright, 3,750. 2.5 miles still to go. We're in that descent. We'll just need to watch out for our speed because we're really in descent power. We're going to come to 2,000. We're going to come to about 2,200 inches of manifold pressure. About 110 on the old airspeed is what I'm looking for. 110. 110. Looking good in the neighborhood. Still using the autopilot. Reducing the workload. Glide slope is alive. Glide slope is alive. I'm looking at this right here. The glide slope needle's coming down. That's center when we're on the actual path. The glide slope, that's what we're looking for. We got rain too. We got rain. Alright, so now we're just waiting to intercept the glide. I do not have approach mode. Approach mode is still dead. So we will be flying this all the way down. I can still use instruments and autopilot. Just gotta use a little bit different functionality here. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and bug though. 1,700 is our decision altitude. And so, alright, we're on glide slope. I'm going to go ahead start our descent. Alright, power's coming back off in the descent as we accelerate. 20 inches of manifold pressure. Now I'm going to go 19 inches of manifold pressure in the descent. Passing through 3,300. 5.5 miles out on the DME. Everything's looking good. I'm still using the autopilot. I'm just using heading and the vertical speed mode to take the workload off me. So 5 miles out on the DME. Needles are centered. Everything is looking good in the neighborhood. I like what I see. Looks like we're starting to maybe break out of this lower. I'm going to go ahead and just keep on flying it down here. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and extend the landing lights. Oh, they were already on. Alright, 1,000 to go. Needle looks good. I like what I'm seeing in the descent. Everything is looking good in the neighborhood. We broke out. I see that right there. So I'm going to go ahead and transition here. And there is the airport straight ahead. Whew. That was, we're going to go ahead and just keep flying it though here. Keep the workload off me. So gas looks good. Undercarriage 3 green. Mixture's full forward. Props are coming full forward. Switches, seats and seat belts all look good, so I like what I see. So here we go. Alright, airport in sight. So I'm gonna go ahead and come off the autopilot. So auto, it's all me now, buddy. I got it. I got the plane here, buddy. Got a mountain right there. I can see why all this terrain avoidance that they want us to do. Alright, I see 2 red, 2 white on the VASI. Like what I'm seeing. I'm a little bit, obviously I'm a little left of center, but all's looking good. We're visual. We've got eyes on it here. Fly her on down here. Fly it on down. This is Pikeville. Fly it on down. Oh yeah, you can definitely see the terrain now. Alright. Gas looks good. Undercarriage is down. Mixture, props, everything. Seats and seat belts. Like what I see. Alright, it's all me now. Alright. Full flaps coming in. Airport is made. Transitioning from DMMS to VREF. Over the numbers. Power's coming back. Into the flare. Into the flare. Into the flare. Woohoo! Whew, what a flight to Pikeville. Wow. That was amazing. Alright, start putting some brakes on. And I'm still a partially busted airplane. You can actually hear the ILS. I've got that on, that Morse code you hear. That's cool. Alright, let's go ahead and just taxi off here. What a flight. And what a good podcast topic right here. Everything just worked out good. It was amazing. Get across the hold lines here. And go ahead and put on the parking brakes. Go ahead and do that. And now let's come back here and say, woo! That was an amazing episode talking about facts and data here in this 7th episode of Unusual Attitude. And again, click that like button if you do. Subscribe if you haven't. Comment, share. Come join me in chat in a future live stream. And thumbs up because you are amazing. And also because I'm your favorite YouTuber's favorite uncle. I am Uncle Mike. See you next time, everybody. Bye. Ooh, that flight ended up being a little more stressful than I actually kind of wanted it to be. But that worked out, having the problems still with the airplane, especially with the topic of the podcast. That was amazing.